See you later.
Perfect. So welcome to today's FHIR working group meeting. Today we have a fairly packed agenda, so I'm going to kick off. So I'm just going to share my screen. Goodness, where is my share screen button? There it is. Cool. All right. So these are the agenda items. Well, this is the agenda for today's meeting. Brett, could you chuck a link in the chat, please? So today we've got, this is the agenda. Please sing out if there are any amendments or changes to the agenda required. I realized it wasn't actually sharing. There we go. Cool. So pleasing out if there are any changes required. Starting with approval of minutes, we've got updates, some report back from Jun. Apologies if I got your name wrong. We've got some AFMM stuff, a few breaking changes and some initial scoping, and then some terminology bits and pieces. And then a little bit of socialization of knowledge today. Any amendments to the agenda for today? Great. Hearing none. The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. So the approval of minutes is for the minutes for last fortnight's meeting, which is here. So last fortnight's meeting, if Brett, could you check a link in the chat? This is the minutes, just so you can see agenda. We've got our link to our video, and then we've got all of our agenda items there. So does anyone have any changes or updates that they'd like to make for the minutes for our previous meeting?
Sorry about that. I just woke up.
Cool.
I think she was on a call. She was like trying to sit.
Right. Hearing none, I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve the minutes for last meeting.
Happy to motion that, Michael Osborne.
Thanks, Michael. Anyone to second?
I can second it, Marika.
Beautiful. Was that you, Uday?
Yes.
Great. Perfect. So we've got a motion and a second. I'm just going to launch the poll.
Oh, yeah. No, yes.
Here we go. Here we go. All right. So please chuck a, if you aren't able to vote for whatever reason, please pop something in the chat. That's almost there. Got 11 out of 14 have participated. Great. Counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So we have got 10 affirmative, including Brett in the chat, 4 abstain, 0 negative. Motion to approve previous minutes carries. Great.
Yeah, like they're safe sleeping these days.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is updates and news, and all of those fall on Brett. So I'm going to hand over to Brett to take us through an actions review, the TSC update, and a little bit of information about the AU core activity around diagnostic report. Take it away, Brett.
Yeah, cool. I'm going to try. I'm really going to keep this brief. So actions wise, I'll just drop a link to the actions summary we have. So this rolls up all our actions. I don't know, Marika, you can probably just hit that link. I don't have much to show. you can probably keep sharing. Cool. Yeah, so these are all outstanding actions. I've eyeballed these, and I know Stephen has done his one. He's away and is presenting stuff at HL7 International. So I know that one's in train. Heath's away this week at International as well. So they're waiting. The review for the family member history items, that's on everyone. We're not looking at that this meeting, so it will be the next meeting. So you've got another 2 weeks to think about having a look at that proposal, which is on the agenda for next time. Danielle's away as well, so I don't think that's been actioned. David, I don't know.
I do. I flicked off a email to Jai, well, that afternoon, so a fortnight ago, and I prompted him last week, but I haven't heard back, so I might have to find another source or something. But I'll keep prodding.
That's good though. At least something's happened. And I've got one on Jason from last time, but I don't know if anything's.
Yeah, I did a public search and I can't find anything publicly. So I think the only way you're going to get this is to be a software vendor that's integrating with PBS Online, or or a software developer. So I'm not sure where that sits now.
All right. Maybe we can take that and follow it up through other channels. Cool. So so PBS Online. Yeah, that's good. Okay, we can find out. And maybe
I think the answer will come from Services Australia.
We've got some other things happening with it as well, so we might try and roll this in. Cool. That's good anyway. Thanks for checking. Cool.
Okay.
And that's about it for that one. I have an AUTSC update. This is the technical steering committee, so we've met a few times. There's some work being done, has been done on some of the forms and things we use for project proposals and project scope statements, and the decision-making practices. We'll probably have to bring back the decision-making practices into the group to talk about that. But that has been worked on, and some of the documents are updating now. There's a target of 1st of June to roll over and to start using the TSC to do project proposals and project scope statements going forward. I see Ricardo.
Hey, Brett, thanks. It's just a quick comment regarding the actions just previously, and when it comes to Service Australia, just letting everybody know that we've been talking to Service Australia, and we'll be trying to get them to nominate people who can come and join us here a little bit more. So I don't know how successful we'll be yet, but I just see there's a bit of communication that's needed back with them, and rather than the agency always being kind of in the middle, we're going to be trying to see if we can get them to participate a little bit more in this forum. So just wanted to let everybody know, because I think there's a lot of things they can add a lot into, and having them in the community would be good, I think.
Fantastic. That's ideal if we can get the people coming along. Thanks, Ricardo. So yeah, the TSC is up and running. So some more stuff will come through, but it does mean for the project, if you're doing project proposals and project scope statements in the near future, you'll probably find that it's a different process than has happened before. So those won't come through the FHIR Workgroup after the 1st of June. In fact, which means from now on, because our next meeting is into June. So that's just to keep an eye on. The decision-making practices will come out through co-chairs as well, because that has to be sent out to them to let them know about changes. There's nothing major there, just a few minor rewordings and incorporating the TSC into the language where required. The other thing of note, there is some work going on. I just wanted to note this as something to think about going forward. There has been some work going on in AU Core around the diagnostic report profile for AU Core. That will almost definitely have an impact on the AU-based profiles that exist. So we may have to have a rethink about that as that gets worked up further in AU Core. So that was just a flag to say that was coming, and that will probably do.
Brilliant. Thanks, Brett. Any questions from the community about any of those items beyond what Ricardo's added? Nope. Excellent. All right. Shun, AU test data project. We've got a report back from you. Would you prefer to share screen or would you prefer
Yes,
for me
please. If
Yeah.
I can have the screen, please.
Cool. Go for it.
So, I have to very quickly drop out and come back again because of the macOS system thing.
That's fine. We might just quickly move to Dushi then, just while Shun is dropping out and reconnecting.
Yep, that's fine. I'll share my screen.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dushi.
Thanks. Okay. Should be sharing now. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I'll just go to the Jira ticket. Can everyone see that? The AUPS actor should be FMM2.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So this is about seeking endorsement from Workgroup of AFMM2 for the two AUPS actor definitions, the consumer and the producer. So as I'm sure we are all familiar, for AFMM2, key requirements are AFMM1 plus the at least 3 independently developed systems have tested most of the scope of the artifact, which is more than 80% of the core data elements, using appropriate data scenarios, and they're reported and accepted by Workgroup. So these two artifacts are already at AFMM1. And we had testing conducted over a number of connectathons and testing events, including some done in Rotterdam last weekend. And some of this testing has already been reported back to this group. And it's the results and the information about it is available from the patient summary FHIR IG testing page. So I'll just go there. Can everyone see that? No? Yep. Okay, all right. So I'm pretty sure everyone's seen this before. This is where we record all information about the testing and the systems tested. So if you want to see which system tested what and when, that's all in these two linked spreadsheets. And then further down, we have these summary tables which show the coverage percentages for all artifacts, including the two actors. So we can see that AUPS consumer has 80% coverage and 86 for the AUPS producer, both, which means both meeting the AFM2 requirement. So we haven't really quite achieved 100%, but there is some more detailed reporting down here, which is, I think, more relevant for us or for artifacts that don't have full coverage. So for the two actors, there's still some areas where we need more testing and more testing evidence. So the main one is around sections. Recommended sections and optional sections. So these are things like device use, testing device use statement profiles and radiology result IPS profiles. But this really points back to the AUPS composition testing coverage rather than being a specific gap to testing of the two actor definitions. So these are not really separate actor requirements. It's just the areas where we need broader composition testing and more evidence there. And then we can see that we have, we need some more evidence around testing known absence of data due to workflow or representing that for both actors. And that's actually the test data issue that we identified. We didn't have any test data for these. And then we need some more evidence for testing of suppressed data for producers. We only had evidence for 2 systems so far. But overall, as we saw, these 2 meet the AFMM2 requirements. So all the evidence is in here. And it's been reported to the AU core group last week, where we look at these tables and information about testing in more details. So the AU core group work group approved this in the last work group meeting last week, and it's now before the FHIR group to endorse that decision and accept that these 2 artifacts can be marked as AFMM2. Are there any questions about or comments about the evidence or the testing or the JIRA ticket? No? Okay. If there are no questions or comments, then I'd like to motion that the FHIR group endorse that the AU core work group decision, the AU core work group decision that these 2 artifacts can be marked as AFMM2. Would anyone like to second?
Brett here, I'll second.
Thanks,
Okay.
Brett. Great. I will launch a poll.
Anyway. Cool. That's a good point. Cool. The next one was the
That
justice
should
one.
be up now.
It's a bit interesting, like they're kind of something that apparently we requested.
Thanks, Brett. I can see your affirmative in chat. Any other people who can't vote, please make sure that you've got pop something in the chat. All right, counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2.
You just muted yourself, Marika. Not sure if that was on purpose. I'm sorry.
It was unintentional. Did I announce the results or not?
No.
No,
don't
cool.
think-
I just did it for myself, just a practice. Great. Okay, so we have 12 affirmative, 0 negative, and 2 abstentions. So motion carries. We can promote those artifacts to AFMM2. I'll endorse that. Thanks, Dushi.
Thank you. I will stop sharing now.
Awesome. And then now that Shun is back, we can hand back over to him, ready for presenting the AU test data project. Over to
Thank you
you.
very much. I hope it's working this time. Can you guys see my desktop?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, thanks to the great work of the community and especially the project teams, the AU FHIR test data project managed to hit a new milestone of the R2 release. So I'm honored to be here today to report back on the release we had. So I'll first go over the project and then go through the outcomes and our community participation and the future intents and plans. That will be my agenda. I'll keep it quick as best as I can. So for the overview, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the purpose is to support the IGs and the testing. If you are interested in the actual text, you can go to our project proposal of the test data project. And the next slide is the scope statement for R2. So for we had really good coverage on AU core R1 in our AU test data project R1. So continuing into R2, we extended our support to AU call R2 and e-requesting R1 and also AU patient summary. That's a new IG since R2 commenced. And also this whole thing is available in the scope statement linked below. So for the resource and links, we have our repository, which is AU FHIR, HL7 AU FHIR test data. The new release is going to be made available right after this meeting later today. I already have a draft lined up. But I would assume people would just go to the master branch because it's the most up to date. We're cutting this release more as a milestone, I guess. And we have documentations. So as part of R2, we made it really clear about a few of our synthetic data properties, especially around some names or identifiers that might have some potential issues that we really want to point out. And we have a contribution policy, which I'll introduce a bit more details in the next slide. And we have our usual license and legal stuff. So for the contribution policy, a major difference, or shall I say milestone we had in the R2 is for R1, we pretty much just supported AU Core and AU Base. But for R2, we now actually have multiple IG projects that we are supporting. So of course, we are open to community contributions, but in R2, we established the ownership of the test data. They remain with the IG project. So the new data would require review and endorsement from the relevant project teams. And apart from that, the administrative resources, the patients, the practitioners, organizations, because we share them with the HI vendor environment with Service Australia and a lot of identifiers, we would need additional governance requirement and a coordinator. So that was a project overview, and now we proceed to the outcomes. And so the release artifact is just like a snapshot of our test data set at this point, and they're in folders or directories with the projects. So here comes the beautiful charts. This page is taken from the R1 release report back. So I'm going to show what we did between R1 and R2. So for AU base, between AU base R5 and AU base R6, we added support to the new profiles added, which I believe is all the new profiles. And for AU core, we also added support to all the profiles added between R1 and R2, and we kept our coverage on the mandatory and must support element. So for e-requesting, because at the time we released R1, e-requesting was in its very early baby stage. So we only had very limited support at the time, but at the time of R2, as of now, we had the full release of AU requesting already. So we added 100% profile coverage to that. And only one of these profiles does not have the 80% element coverage required for AFM2. And we also had the coverage on AU patient summary. So we have like a few document bundles that demonstrate different aspects of the patient summary. So we covered all profiles, we covered all mandatory sections and the majority of other sections. We also covered signatures, missing data, empty sections, no absence, and suppressed. And in addition to the bundles, the AU core dataset has a set of individual resources. They are a set of patients with very good medical and like medications and conditions and allergies and observations as a whole history, that they are a good candidate to be called on dollar summary to load into your system. We have a page in the Confluence, in the FHIR Workgroup, that goes into details of the coverage of our test data. Shout out to Dushi, the great resource. And the link is in the slide. We, again, because we now have multiple projects, we improve the task case discovery. First, we organize things into directories, and we also, upon request from the patient summary stream on the events and connections, we release these patients with a good set of data I just mentioned. We release them into cards or snapshots. That's just make it easier for people to use during these testing events. Yep. So I would say we fulfill the mission of our project scope statement by providing a good coverage and on all the projects and supporting the event and testing. So for the community participation, the test data was utilized. That's in addition to the point where we already released our 162 now and R2. We had 4 HL7 Australia connections. We had 1 Spark testing events. I think it's more than AU core. I have to fix this later. And just a reminder, another testing event is coming in July. So please just use our test data in that as well. And this is a new addition. It just happened last week. It's an international connection. It was brought there, and from what I heard, it's been helpful. We had adoption and contributions from broader community as well. So what's coming up down the way? I hope we can continue that project, and we will extend our support to our existing projects through the iterative development. We will have a new AU base, a new AU core requesting patient summary, but also we wish to expand the dataset to support upcoming IGs. So we are having encounter record just down the corner, and the provider directory is also an exciting new IGs in the area. I will probably come back later with a new PSS for R3. So that's what's funding, I guess. Thanks, everyone. That's the end of the report back. Do you have any comments or questions? Brett?
Yeah, I was just going to say, thanks, Jun. That was really good. Yeah, I think this is a very useful technical project, and I think it's been used a lot at connectathons and things. So it's a valuable resource, especially when you're getting started. So well done, and yeah, hopefully we'll have another PSS coming through soon.
Thank you, Brett. Anyone else? Okay, that sounds to me like a no. So thanks again, everyone, for the support. I'll hand back to Marika.
Thanks, Shun. Really awesome work. As Brett said, super useful resource. I'm sure everyone's at least used it at some point in their implementation. And there were no hands, there was just applause. All right, Uday, next up. So we have Uday with 2 separate JIRAs coming out of the discussion around identifier type codes in the Connectathon in March. So take it away, Uday.
Sure. Thanks, Marika. Hope you all can see my screen here. I'll be very quick as we presented the slides in the previous meeting as well. I'll present that so that we have an idea of the background where we are coming from, basically. So the changes are to do with those JIRA tickets are to do with the identifier data type profiles, which are in AU Base, which are HAE identifier, ABN, ARBN, and ACN identifiers. So as we all know, the identified type value carries a unique definition to it. And it classifies basically the identifier of a code, and there is a definition associated with that as well. Basically, it distinguishes between variant identifiers, such as DVA card types. As we all know, these DVA cards are classified into different colors, and each color has a colored identifier as different identified type values associated with that, and little known identifiers such as local dispense identifier as well. What's the current status within the HL7AU base? HL7AU base identifier profiles mandate a nominated restricted value, which is unique value for every identifier type. We all think that it should continue as a good practice. And we also think that all the contributors who contribute to the HL7AU base should, whenever they nominate a identifier, they should nominate identifier type to that as well in the HL7 value set, extended value set of identifier type. Community engagement about this work. We have done good engagement at Julep. We had a working group discussion as we're having today, and we had a Connectathon breakout session in the last at Sydney Connectathon as well, where it was very good proactive feedback has been given about this, and good discussion happened at that venue. So impacts, what are the impacts on AU base? So basically, in the previous working group, there was a motion to assign a particular identifier type for PIO, HSP-O, and so on. And in the previous AU core working group meeting as well, we had a motion and it was approved. Thanks for everyone to approving it. So we removed one of the constraints from the AU core as well, which are restricting the identifier type of PAIO and HPIO to have NOI as an identifier type value. So we have agency has done the pull request for the HL7AU core to accept it, and it's been getting accepted soon. And HSP-O identifier, we have assigned a new identifier type for that as well, and changed the associated examples to have that type. And coming to the ticket, which is in focus right now, which is 56102. We will, once the motion is approved, we'll assign a new identifier type for HAE identifier as well in the code system. And the other one, which is 56103, we'll assign, and we'll also clean up the ABN, ACN, and ARBN identifiers to have a unique identifier type values. And we'll also change that their associated examples to reflect that and ensure there are no errors in the QA report and so on. Yep, that's about it for me. Any questions or any discussion points you want to raise as well?
Yeah.
Cool. I just wanted to call out for the community that 56103, which is one of the tickets for today, is a breaking change. It's been well discussed and well received by the community, but it is a breaking change. So it's just worth noting that explicitly.
I can quickly show the Jira tickets.
Yeah, please.
As
Thank
well.
you.
Sorry, showed that before.
Let's just do each one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is the HAE identifier, which is not a breaking change, but we just assigning a new identifier type value for that instead of using NOI in the code system. And the breaking change one is for already, which are already identifiers which are in AU base, which are ABN, ACN, and ARBN, which could have an impact of due to the breaking change to assign a unique value.
Could we do each one separately? Like do each ticket? Which one would you like to start with?
Yes, I want to do 56102 first as a motion, and then 56103, please.
So the motion is to approve this new code, display and description per the Jira ticket. Thanks, Uday. Do we have a second?
I'll second Stuart.
Thanks, Stuart. Just launching the poll now.
I think you went on mute again, Marika.
The mute was intentional. I'm just conscious my partner's in a in a separate meeting. So relaunching that poll. And we have, all right, that's everyone who's voted. So we have got 12 affirmative, 0 negative, and 1 abstention. Motion carries. I'll happily entertain a second motion for the second Jira if you'd like, Uday.
Thank you.
Can I just ask that next time we have people from different organisations in the motion, please? Just point of order.
Thanks, Michael. That's really valid. Sorry. Do we need to get a second?
I don't think so, because it doesn't really change the result, but I just thought,
yeah,
just point of order.
Yeah. Thanks for calling it out, Michael. All right. Uday, happy to entertain a second motion if you would like.
Thank you. Yes, that would be great.
Could we just eyeball that one on screen? The ticket?
Sure. Show that.
Yep.
Thank you.
So it's ABN. It's we're getting a new display value for that and a new description for that as well. Same as is for ACN and ARBN as well.
Yeah, and it's only breaking on the profiles in the sense that now that identifier type will be restricted. And there's, I think there's some specific guidance that recommends something else, so that will have to change.
Cool. Any other comments or questions related to this ticket? Hearing none, happy to entertain a motion.
I'm happy to move this one, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
And anyone to second?
Brett here, I'll second.
Cool. Thanks, Brett. All right, launching the poll.
And sometimes I like to finish off please give it a go. And then I was sort of looking, what can you say, please give it a go, confirm that it's working, people don't respond to you. And then they don't confirm it. So I was kind of like,
all right.
Just close the ticket.
As with always, if there are any additionals, add them to the chat. Yep. Great. I think that is everyone. All right. So we have got 11 affirmative, 12 affirmative, including Brett in the chat, 0 negative, 1 abstention, motion carries. So we've got that all approved. Thank you very much, Uday, for bringing this to resolution. I think were there any other comments, questions about these items, or happy to move on to the next agenda item?
Thank you. Thanks, Marika. The action on me is now I will provide the 2 pull requests to HL7AU base to be merged into the main branch after review.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Uday.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on, we've got Stuart speaking to the endpoint profile. So just this, for this initial discussion, I think the aim is to decide on the scope of the draft profile. We've got about 20 minutes allocated, so that's all yours, Stuart. Are you happy to share?
Thank you. Yep, happy to share. I'll push that over now. Just lost the Zoom window completely as well. Cool, there we go. Thank you. So some of you that are currently in this conversation have been across the AU Core Working Group as well for the discussions on endpoint. So I'll recap for those that weren't, but essentially the agency has put forward a profile for the inclusion of an endpoint profile in AU Core R3 for secure messaging, FHIR-based exchange mechanisms, and then maintaining the backwards compatibility with NHSD and HCPD implementations. So we put forward a bare bones profile for AU Core for the endpoint profile. And then that was taken through to community, and community suggested that there needs to be an inclusion in AU Base. So we've been back and forth with AU Core a couple of times on what should be constrained down in Core and what should be included in Base. And then we've been back and forward through a couple of email exchanges as well. And then we've had people like Brett jump in and give us some guidance and assistance with that too. So we're bringing our current state over to the FHIR Workgroup for inclusion within AU Base to see what everybody thinks about the current state of the base profile. And if anybody is curious, we can show you the constraints down in AU Core as well. So at the moment for AU Base, this is what the AU endpoint profile is looking like. We've dropped a lot of this back from where we originally started just to make it a little bit easier to adopt in the first instance. And then if community wants anything further, we can sort of start to accept this, change this work from the inclusion out and build on this from here. So at the moment, we've only got one slice, which is the environment type. This is a cross-version profile. We believe it'll be the first instance of a cross-version so that it supports R4 and R5. So it's a multi-version slice profile as well. Then we've got the standard endpoint profile extensions as well, which is status, connection type, payload, and address. We did have some bindings, we did have some codings, but we've pulled those back as well. So this is about as bare bones as we can get for a starting point on the AU endpoint profile. For some context, this is where we're at. This is what it looks like in the AU Core side of things. So we've just added those constraints, must supports, cardinality rules, all of those kind of things. Essentially one-to-one with base, apart from the must supports and any other constraints that we needed. This is current for our staging builds that we have here, but I'll just flick back to base because that's what we're talking about at the moment. So this is what we're proposing to go into AU Base as the AU endpoint profile and then constrain down into Core as well. Core's pretty happy with where we're at the moment, but I believe that this is the first time that Base has seen any of this as the AU FHIR Working Group. So if there are any questions, anything anybody wants to go through, please let me know. On that note, there was a piece of discovery as well that the AUPD payload types for PD2 on FHIR will most likely need to be moved back into Base as well. That's in a standalone IG and affects a whole bunch of different code systems that we have there in the moment, at the moment. So there was some thoughts about moving that over into Base as well. Not necessarily for today, but just something to think about. But that's essentially where we're at. So Michael, I think you had your hand up first.
Yep, thanks, Stuart. Just checking here about the proposal for base. Are you looking at changing cardinality for this proposal, like those one-to-ones there on status, connection type, and payload type?
No, I don't believe so. They should be the same between base and core.
Oh no,
I
sorry,
don't
but
think
from the international spec, I was just under the impression that in base we didn't adjust cardinality, we just added localizations so that we would leave it for downstream to decide on the cardinality, which in this case would be AE core to adjust the cardinality rather than base.
Oh, got it. Okay, fair enough. I'll
Happy
take
for
that on
others,
notice.
Brett, you've probably got a thought on that.
I believe those are mandatory. It'd be better if we had the differential view actually, but
Yeah,
Well,
actually, that's what I was just trying to work out, whether
Yeah.
they were actually
Yeah.
changed or not.
Let me bring that up for you.
Yeah, cool. There you go. Yeah, so there's actually no different that they
No,
are
okay, that's all right
they're
then.
required. Yeah, they're required in the
Yep.
resource type.
Yep.
So I don't think. Yeah, the
No,
only
that's all
thing is
good
the
then.
extension.
No.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Not losing our minds.
Yeah, that's good.
And then Brett.
Oh yeah. Like I think this is good. Like I'd be happy to say let's proceed to a draft profile. So draft 0 a base endpoint. With this extension recommendation, I think this one's one from R5 that's useful and I think was noted as part of the needs of people as part of the discussion. So I think that's good. And I think the stuff you've highlighted going forward with the terminology, preferred terminologies on connection type and payload type would be good things to proceed with next as separate items. Yeah, because they need some terminology work to be brought back in. I don't think there's anything too controversial in those proposals, but it is moving an existing terminology from another spec into AU
Yeah,
base.
understandable.
Needs some explaining.
More than happy to bring that back as
yeah,
its own
cool.
item. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll let other people have a chat, but I'll probably motion on this if we get to that.
Sounds good.
Are those
any other questions?
are those value sets in NCTS?
Ooh,
No.
good question. I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
Let me just check. I've got the.
Oh, that's a good question there.
No, I don't think they are in CTS value sets.
No, they're in the PD spec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
think they're all
yeah.
local.
I think they're established ones for adding the SMD connection types and payload types, which are they're from the Australian standard. They're from Australian standards as well, with the V2 formats defined. So I think so they're well backed by history and usage as well.
So they'd been put into base as well, or into a new terminology IG, I guess is the question.
Well, that would be the final. That would definitely be the destination. But I think that would be one of the terminologies we want to move across but it has to be somewhere if we're going to add it to AU base. That's all.
Yeah, we'll bring that back as a second item. We can have those conversations and see where we wanted to end up. It was just the discovery piece that we had while we were building this for base and core. So we haven't done a super deep dive on it, but happy to come back with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Michael, if there's a THOIG to hit that's actually going to be connected to AU base in a time frame, then that's possible. But I think at the moment we would move it into AU base, and that'd be one of the things that moves across into the terminology spec with all the other stuff. Yeah, I think it's a timing question more than a content question. Yeah.
Anything else from anyone? Oh, okay. Well, I'm happy to put this forward for a motion to include as a draft profile.
Yeah, so can we state that precisely?
We very much can.
Excellent.
So I will take the wording from this bottom dot point that we have here, if you're okay with that there, Brett.
Which one?
This last dot point here.
Well, that's a bit vague.
It is. I'm trying to think of the best way that I can word it for a motion.
No, I would just go motion to add a draft profile for AU Base Endpoint, including the single extension
Okay,
or
let's do
environment
that.
type.
All right, so I will motion then for a draft AU endpoint for inclusion with AU base with the single extension of environment type, which is the cross version from R4 R5.
And does that
Oh.
include the code system and value sets?
No,
No.
Okay.
I will second that.
Great, thanks both of you. So thank you, Stuart and Brett. Let me just launch the poll.
Oh, so I thought you were frozen at staying still.
Here we
Are you cool with
go.
that?
All right.
So next thing is services.
Great.
Services that we use, such as TeamCity and LastPass, will send requests for
Right.
us to, for example.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we have got, including Brett in the chat, 10 affirmative, 0 negative, 2 abstentions. So motion to add the AU-based draft as discussed for endpoint has passed. Thank you, Stuart. That was also well under time, which feels like a bit of a miracle. Which means we can make up a bit of time. All right. So over to you, David. For this, we're looking at getting context, next steps, and a list of actions related to a few terminology bits and pieces coming through.
Thanks, Marika. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great. I have too many screens happening. Anyway, all good. So this came about changes to the service provision conditions code system. There's a number of health provider, PCA and Health Connect using the value sets and code systems from the AU base code system. And I'll just, and it came up in an initial JIRA ticket. This one here, this wanting to add, but then there was a whole heap of banter about other changes. And so the initial, this is the code system, the current code system with these codes. And from that, there's been a bunch of other JIRA tickets created. Now I'll just go back to, so the first one was about adding mix because there wasn't an appropriate code in the current code system to represent a mix of bulk fees and bulk billing. And so for this JIRA ticket, so there's a bunch of JIRA tickets and we'll process each one as we go. And the first one is to add mix and deprecate FBB. And FBB is fees and bulk billing. And mix is bulk billing available with conditions fees may apply. Now, these changes have been run by Brett, the people at Health Direct, and people at PCA, and the health, and also the agency healthcare provider one. So they seem to be okay with that. So is anybody good in, and I'll do these, there's about 5 JIRA tickets. So I'll just do one by one, if that's okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, we have a hand
Brett.
raised by Brett.
Yeah, just a comment. I just some history for where these came from. This was actually done originally back with the provider directory work. Wasn't actually included, I think, in the PD spec directly at all. And I know the NHSD had some interest in this as part of the consumer information needed for that directory. Some of the original codes, the definitions are incomplete and frankly inadequate. So that's probably something to fix. We will be fixing that along the way. But yeah, I think this was a good review done to actually look at the real concepts and meaning for these. So I think, yeah, David can go through, but I think these are good suggestions, more aligned with the needs of the people most using it.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Yeah, Brett's probably more across the history than I. I just happen to be the bunny making the changes. So does anybody have any questions about this particular change? Brett, your hand still up, or you just
Nope, that's just me.
Okay, cool. Well, having here heard nothing, I'd like to propose that mix is added to the code system, and FBB and the code FBP is deprecated from the code system service provision conditions Australian concepts.
Happy to second that one, David.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thank
Michael.
you. All right. Launching a poll. Go. Great, I can see you there in the chat. Just confirming, Brett, in the chat, I'm assuming that's +1 affirmative.
So can I go back to discussion for a second?
Sure.
That code system, where is that? Yeah. Defined.
Just going to end the poll briefly.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I had just a question about that too, Brett. I think we need to, it's not currently resolvable to the NHSD's FHIR IG, so I think we definitely want to make sure that the NHSD
Yeah, I would prefer we had that code system contained in AE Base.
Right, okay.
Did that become a second motion, Brett?
It's just the terms have to exist somewhere for a start. And unless, like, I wouldn't be keen on referring to an external IG for terminology. NCTS, sure, but just as a matter of policy.
Okay, so do we need to add?
I prefer we updated the terminology that we have and kept it in the same code system.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that too.
And that's what I was saying, or not?
No, because it's
the current code system is the original NHSD code system URL.
Right.
Yeah. So it would stay as an HL7 Australia term. So like in this code system, then I
yeah. I didn't mean okay. That's where I got the definition from. Okay, my mistake. I understand.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So that's where I got the definition from when I cut and paste, but it's going to go back into
the ticket says that, but the term is not. Yeah, it's different.
That's wrong. Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
I'm happy in that.
My mistake.
So we have the friendly amendment just to the slides.
Correct.
Tickets remains the same. Do I need
in
this case to?
I should have removed that. I'll amend the the slide to remove that component.
Thank you. Thanks for that
Yeah.
clarification. I just had a bad
Yeah, so I was wondering what
Sorry,
you're getting on about.
that ticket 55576 does actually still have the NHSD code system URL. Is that we're happy with that? But it's going to be defined.
As long as we motion what to do, I'm happy. Yeah. If we motion what to do, we can fix the ticket. Yeah.
So given the additional discussion, I'm just going to, for clarity's sake, entertain a new motion so we can state it clearly.
Okay, I motion that we add the code mix with the display of that and the display of mixed billing and the definition of mixed billing available with conditions and fees apply to the existing AU-based service conditions Australian concepts, and we deprecate the code FBB.
And sorry, David, the new code's URL should be terminology.
Okay.
Slash as per Sam's comment. Is that what we're planning?
Correct.
Brilliant. So that feels like a clear motion. Do I have a second?
I'm happy to second that with the minor change that definition is as on screen, not as David stated.
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Michael, for the friendly amendment. All right, just launching that poll. Go. All right, that's launched. Just confirming, Brett, your +1 mix previous is, yeah, great. Thank you.
There you go.
All right. We've got 70%. Just count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alrighty. So including Brett's +1 in the chat, we have 9 affirmative, 0 negative, 3 abstentions. Motion with the friendly amendments friendly amendment carries. Wonderful. All right, thanks, David. I believe you've got a few more.
I got a few more. Thanks, Marika. Yep. Okay, the next one is to, there used to be one bulk billing only, and the same, and now there's a new one, just bulk billing, no fee or for eligible services with a Medicare card presented. So just more of a clarification. So deprecating BBO and adding BB. And
any questions for David at this point? Are we happy with the system that we've got on screen and on the Jira? They match. Great. Thanks, Rachel. All right. Any other questions, comments, clarifications? Otherwise, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
Okay, the motion is that we, in the code system service position conditions Australian concepts, that we deprecate the code BBO and add the code as per screen with the, as per screen, as per slide.
Thanks, David. Anyone to second?
Happy to second that, unless someone else wants to.
Thanks, Michael. All right, launching that poll now. Go. %75%. All right. Counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have got, including +1 from the chat, we've got 10 affirmative, 1 abstention, motion carries. Back to you, David. I think you've got a few more.
You indeed. Thank you, Marika. Okay. There's existing code FAP, fees apply, and they just want to change, the definition needs to be changed from all or some of the services provided are offered at the healthcare services to, just to simplify it, fees apply for services provided. Just makes it clearer.
That makes sense, actually. That's good.
Any other feedback?
If there's no other feedback, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
The motion is that for the code FAP in the code system, service provision conditions, Australian concepts, that the definition of the code fees apply changes from what's on the screen to fees apply for services provided.
Thanks, David. Anyone to second?
The ability to
Brett here, I will.
Thank you very much, Brett. All right, just launching that poll. That's there, ready to go. All right, it's 90% done. Brett, oh, sorry, I should say, anyone who can't vote, please put in the chat. Thanks, Brett. Counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have got, including the chat, 10 affirmative, 0 negative, 1 abstention, motion carries. And I think this is your last juror for the day. So back to you.
Okay, what's this one? Okay, this one's just a pedantic, picky one. In the, what can I go with the code?
Yeah, it's the COP code, David.
COP, co-payment one. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, capital in the COP code, there's private doesn't need to be capital, it just needs the lowercase.
Yeah, lowercase p and lowercase I. Yeah.
Confirming,
Yeah.
Brett,
Oh,
if this
yeah.
is a technical correction, does this need a motion?
Don't need a motion if it's a technical correction.
Okay.
Technical correction? Okay.
We'll just
change it.
don't worry about that one. We'll just look at that ticket and say it's a technical correction.
Okay, I'll update it as a technical correction. Cool.
Great.
Thank you.
That's me. Thank you.
Cool. I'm just confirming. So we've gone through 55578, 55577, 55576, and 55575. Have we covered off all of the tickets you were raising?
I think there's still 55578.
Yeah.
This one. I did skip one, sorry.
Yeah.
But this one. 55578 and no NFE, no fee. So we're changing the definition from what's on the all or some of the service provided are offered free of charge to a free service where no payment or Medicare card is required.
Any questions for David? Hearing none, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
That the committee accept the change for the definition of the code NFE from what's on the screen.
Wonderful. Anyone to second?
I'll second, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Just launching that poll. Alrighty, that's there. Great. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have got 9 affirmative, 0 negative, 2 abstention, including Brett's vote in the chat. Sorry, I should have shared those results, but there you go. Motion carries. Wonderful. So I think that those were all of the items that you had, David.
Yep, that's me wrapped up. Thanks, Marika.
Brilliant.
Thanks, everyone.
That's a lot of things that we've covered off, I think. Now, I can't see Jane on the line. Barty, are you in a position at all to speak to Jane's agenda item? It was diagnosed date on condition, just an introduction to socialize the information.
I don't have the full context, but I can definitely talk through what I'm aware of. So the requirement here is to record the date when the diagnosis was confirmed, or the doctor said, okay, this is, like there's one date as recorded, which is already there on the profile, but when actually it was confirmed, the diagnosis, that's what we are seeking here. And so that's the purpose of diagnosis date, basically. And I know there is an extension also for this that has been defined, but doesn't clearly indicate only that's the purpose of that.
Yeah, so this chart, to be honest.
Cool, and we have a question from Liam.
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering how this differs from the onset date, because from memory, I think the definition is the date of diagnosis.
So onset date could be prior, like, the start of it could be later, but when a clinician confirms that, yes, it is, maybe some test needs to be done or whatever to be certain about that, yes, that's what the condition is about.
So the differentiation is someone is presenting symptoms, etc., versus someone has said, yes, the symptoms that you were experiencing are related to X condition.
That's right.
Does that
Right.
clarify?
It does, yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And this differs from recorded, which is just the technical date that it was in the system. Is that right?
That's right. So recorded is more when it was added into the system, but not really when it was certain about that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I weigh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just I'm not sure, because the definition of onset is, in the opinion of the clinician, the condition or situation began. So are we talking? I don't understand. From a clinical sense, the onset is telling you when the condition was active, and these are all assertions by the clinician, or they maybe come from another source. But like it's yeah. So I think it's more. I don't understand. Is this not just some kind of certainty kind of thing, as opposed to being a different date? Because I don't see why you would have an onset and a confirmed date. That's what I'm getting to.
So onset could be that, a patient is walking in and giving you, this is their observation is on, whatever the condition is it about. And when a clinician gets a confirmation on whatever assessments or labs or whatever they need to perform to be certain that, yes, that's what we are going to treat for.
Yeah, but like these are different like entries. Like, because I don't see, like, you can have unconfirmed conditions and then confirmed.
Is it more about wanting to have a record of when that state changed for the condition?
That's what I'm thinking about, but as I said, I don't really have the whole context of it. This is something pain
But
is
I think this goes back, yeah, like this is almost a question to go back to the patient care at international because it's, yeah, because you do have verification status, which lets you say something about how confirmed that condition is. And yeah, so it's more like if you want multiple dates, you're then linking a date to a status, which I think they've probably intentionally avoided. Yeah.
because there is something as stage and condition, and that has its own dates, like at this particular stage, the assertion date or what's that called for that? Summary assessment, no, not this one. Just give me 1 second. Let me find. There was an extension for this in.
Yeah, because I would almost, yeah, I would almost come at it that you would record, if you wanted to record an unconfirmed condition and then a confirmed condition, that'd be 2 different entries. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's just a different, like you got to decide what's current, but like in the history, like you might walk in and say this is unconfirmed report from the patient, and then later say this is a confirmed, and you can put whatever date you like on either of that, both of those, right?
So there is this one condition asserted date. It's an extension defined in.
Sorry, Buddy, can you either share the link or share your
Share
screen?
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share the screen probably and also put in the link. Give me 1 sec. Okay, that's the share.
Yeah.
Can anyone see Buddy's?
No, I was just trying.
Coming up. Yeah.
That's okay. I wasn't sure if it was a technical issue or something else.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let me make it slightly bigger. So this one here says that the asserted identified the allergy intolerance condition, problem or diagnosis or other event, situation, issue, clinical concept that may have risen to a level of or remains of a concern. For example, when the patient experiences chest pain, the asserted date represents when the clinician began following the chest pain, not when the patient experienced the chest pain. So the onset would be when they experienced it, but the assertion might be different. So basically when the clinician had their confirmations on it. Asserted date supports the recognition that information is not always entered in a system immediately. Assertion and recording are different acts, so asserted date and recorded date are semantic. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Like, because that's just recording an assertion that's not related to the onset. But like, it really is what you consider onset, right? Because it's like some clinicians won't say it existed until they diagnosed it, and mostly that's true in the sense like normally a clinician would diagnose something and that's the onset date because that's your confirmed date
because
of diagnosis, right?
I did see some thread in Zulip also, and I think it was just left there because no progress was done on this. So I think
Yeah. Yeah, because that like reads to me like these are like dates you assert and reassert the condition. Like it's
maybe
like I think that's loaded too because it says it's a concern, which I think is also covered elsewhere.
I mean, the level of concern is just definitional for condition. That's I don't think that's necessarily controversial.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is anybody clinical in the call today who can maybe put in more insight on the workflow, the information, the way it is needed in there. But I think the project at Jane is they do need a diagnosis date.
This is again this is like trying to maintain history in a single resource.
Which feels provenance-y.
Yeah, because I think you could happily have multiple condition instances that covered the different states of knowledge. Because you just go patient reported, they had a problem starting from here to here unconfirmed. And then sometime later the doctor says you have a problem, I've diagnosed it, confirmed. And that's actually just what happened. So it's how you interpret it, right? Do you replace the original one, or do you, these are all questions like it's more how do you want to implement your system questions.
Any other
Anyway,
questions, thoughts?
good. I just had one request because can we have a ticket that says what the problem is and how you would fix it?
Barty, are you able to take that action, or is that a action that is better on Jane for her project?
I'll create the ticket and I'll let Jane fill in more information so it's easier
Cool.
for other people when
Because
they
it's just the concept. Yeah, to try and spell out the concept that you're trying to
And
define, and then if you have a proposal for an extension or something, say we would need an extension, or we could recommend this one. Yeah, that would be good.
Cool. And then we can bring it back to the working group.
Yeah, cool. That's good. I understand something about it now, so that's good.
Great. So just in the interest of time, we have got 6 minutes. Brett, you've just got some things to flag, and then we've got next meeting plan.
Amazing. Yeah, so this was just noting we have just approved the HAE identifier change, and we do have the existing HSP-O changes for terminology we applied in previous meetings. So I think that will lead to effectively the completion of those two data type identifier profiles. So at the moment they're just in as draft 0. So I think I would ask probably Uday or someone to raise a ticket to move those to AFMM1 and get the committee to agree that they're now good to publish, because that will mean they're then included in the ballot.
Sure, Brett. I'll create a ticket for that. Yep.
Yeah, so that's good. Once you've done the HAE PR and that's brought in, and you can do both of those.
So
because we've discussed them, and we've gone through all the changes we know about. So I think that's good.
Sure. For HSP-O and HAE, right?
Yeah, I think yes, that's good.
Okay.
The other ones I think are already at FMM1, so they're changes to existing artifacts. So I think that's fine.
Sure, sounds great.
That was all.
Thanks for taking that action, Uday. So our next meeting is scheduled for the 3rd of June. How are we in June already? Scheduled for the 3rd of June. We've already got a few items coming through for the agenda there. So please, if there's anything that you would like to table, send it through to the committee so that we can update the agenda. Otherwise, if there are no other points of business, we've got 4 minutes left. I'm happy to call the meeting to a close. Great. Thanks everyone for your contribution today.
Sensational chairing, because I did not expect to get to the end of that list.
Nor did I, Brett. Nor did I.
Well done, Marika.
With 3.5 minutes to spare.
Cool.
Well done.
All right.
Good
job.
Thank you.
We'll see you on the next one, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.